Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Every woman in this room has a power she doesn't even fully understand yet. A power that doesn't come from beauty or body or being the loudest in the room. It comes from identity, from knowing who you are, what you bring, and what you will never settle for. That's what makes you the woman he can't replace. A woman becomes irreplaceable by knowing her worth and refusing to shrink to fit anyone's expectations. And let me tell you something, ladies, that right there is a whole shift in your life. When a woman finally understands who she is, what she carries, and what she brings to the table, everything changes. See, the problem isn't that you aren't good enough. The problem is that too many of you keep trying to make yourself small so somebody else can feel big. You keep dimming your light to make somebody else comfortable. But when you understand your worth, you stop doing all of that. You stop trying to squeeze yourself into spaces that were never designed for you. You stop trying to please people who wouldn't walk across the street for you. You stop giving all your time, all your energy, all your emotions to people who only give you their leftovers. Knowing your worth means you wake up every day with a different kind of confidence, a different kind of energy, a different kind of walk. You ain't begging nobody to choose you because you've already chosen yourself. See, a woman who knows her value doesn't negotiate with disrespect. She doesn't wait around for someone to realize her worth. She knows her worth the moment she gets up in the morning. She knows her worth when she walks into a room. She knows her worth when she speaks, when she loves, when she decides, when she walks away. And you want to know the real truth? A man feels that kind of worth the moment he meets her. You don't have to spell it out. You don't have to explain it. Your presence alone says, I'm not like everybody else. That's what makes her irreplaceable. Because the minute you start showing people you know who you are, their whole approach changes. A man can't play with a woman who knows herself. He can't run game on her. He can't breadcrumb her. He can't waste her time. Not because she's harsh, but because she's sure. And that certainty, oh, that's a different kind of power. Knowing your worth doesn't mean you act like you're too good for everybody. It means you understand what you deserve, and you're not apologizing for it. Too many women are out here apologizing for having a heart, for having standards, for wanting consistency, for demanding respect, for expecting loyalty. Stop apologizing for things you were supposed to have from the beginning. When you apologize for your worth, you teach people that they're right to treat you less than you deserve. But when you stand firm, when you say, this is who I am and this is what I expect, you teach people how to love you. You teach them how to treat you. You teach them that if they want access to you, they got to step up, not because you're being difficult, but because you're operating from a place of value. You ever notice how the world treats diamonds differently than rocks? It's the same thing with women. A woman who knows she's a diamond doesn't put herself on the clearance rack. She doesn't let anybody handle her carelessly. She doesn't let just anyone pick her up, play with her, put her down, and come back when they feel like it. She requires intention. She requires effort. She requires consistency. And if someone can't give her that, she isn't afraid to walk away. That's what makes her irreplaceable. There's a quiet strength inside of her that says, I'm worth more than this. And that strength attracts the right kind of man and repels the wrong kind. Knowing your worth also means you stop settling for potential. You stop falling in love with what someone could be one day. You start evaluating what they are right now. You stop waiting for someone to change, to grow, to suddenly turn into the man you've been imagining. A woman who knows her worth doesn't date somebody's imagination. She dates their reality. She pays attention to how they treat her, how they show up, how they follow through, how they make her feel. And if it doesn't align with the life she knows she deserves, she chooses peace instead of problems. She chooses self-respect instead of self-sacrifice. She chooses her future over someone else's excuses. That's why she becomes irreplaceable, because she refuses to lose herself trying to love someone who doesn't appreciate her. A woman who knows her worth doesn't shrink for anybody. She doesn't silence her voice. She doesn't hide her intelligence. She doesn't downplay her dreams. She doesn't pretend to be less than she is just so someone won't feel intimidated. Ladies, if your greatness intimidates a man, that's not your man. A man who's right for you wants you to shine. He wants you to grow. He wants you to win. He wants to be a part of your elevation, not the reason you stay the same. And when a woman embraces that mindset, when she says, I'm not shrinking for nobody, she becomes magnetic. She becomes unforgettable. She becomes the kind of woman a man realizes he will never find again. Knowing your worth doesn't just change your relationships. It changes your entire life. You start walking differently. You start talking differently. You start making decisions differently. You stop entertaining nonsense. You stop tolerating confusion. You stop participating in cycles that drain your energy. You become peaceful, focused, grounded. And trust me, when you reach that level of self-respect and self-awareness, you become the woman he can't replace. Because you're not just beautiful. You're not just kind. You're not just loving. You are rooted in yourself. And a woman who is rooted in herself is the rarest, most powerful, most irreplaceable force a man will ever encounter. Irreplaceable women set standards, not ultimatums, because a standard is not something you shout at a man. It's something you live. A standard is not a threat. A standard is not an argument. A standard is an expectation that comes from knowing who you are. And when a woman carries herself with real standards, a man can feel it before she ever says a word. She doesn't have to lecture him. She doesn't have to repeat herself 10 times. She doesn't have to prove anything. Her consistency teaches him everything he needs to know. See, a lot of women think that demanding more loudly is what gets results, but it's actually being consistent quietly that changes the entire game. When you show a man how you expect to be treated by the way you treat yourself, by the things you tolerate, by the things you reject, he learns your language without you raising your voice. A woman with standards knows where her time goes, where her energy goes, where her heart goes. She doesn't just give her best to anybody who asks for it. She evaluates, she observes, she listens, she pays attention. She doesn't go blind just because a man shows her a little bit of interest. She doesn't fall for empty promises or pretty words. She cares about consistency because consistency is the real proof of intention. She understands that anybody can act right for a week, but only a man with real character can act right when things get hard. A woman with standards isn't impressed by bare minimum effort. She isn't excited by crumbs. She doesn't feel lucky because someone gives her attention. She feels grounded because she knows the value of her presence. See, an ultimatum comes from fear. It comes from desperation. It comes from trying to force something that isn't aligned. But a standard comes from strength. It comes from self-respect. It comes from being clear about what you want and what you refuse to entertain. A woman with standards doesn't say, if you don't do this, I'm leaving. She simply leaves, not out of anger, but out of alignment. She doesn't have to slam the door or make a scene. She just quietly removes herself because she's not negotiating with things that disturb her peace. A man who experiences that kind of woman realizes that her love is a privilege, not a possession. He realizes her presence is something he must protect, not something he can play with. That's why she becomes irreplaceable. A woman with standards teaches a man how to treat her without ever insulting him. She doesn't strip away his dignity. She doesn't belittle him. She doesn't manipulate him. She elevates him by showing him that there is a higher way to love, a higher way to communicate, a higher way to show up. She sets the tone with grace. She guides with patience. She leads with respect. And because she leads with respect, he learns to give it back in return. A man will always rise when he's dealing with a woman who brings out the best in him, not the worst. But that rise on happens when she is consistent with her standards. A standard that changes every week isn't a standard. It's confusion. But a standard that stays steady becomes a foundation. When a woman sets standards, she protects herself from emotional exhaustion. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't cling. She doesn't overextend herself trying to keep a man who isn't trying to keep her. She knows what she deserves, so she doesn't cry over what doesn't match it. She doesn't crumble because someone couldn't meet her level. She simply understands that not everyone is meant for her. And when she understands that, she saves herself from so much unnecessary pain. Standards don't just protect your heart, they improve the quality of your life. They filter out the wrong people before they ever get inside your life. They allow you to love from a place of confidence, not fear. They give your relationship structure, clarity, and direction. A man respects a woman with standards because she respects herself. Men are drawn to what they cannot take for granted. They are drawn to what requires effort. They are drawn to what has value. When a woman treats herself like a treasure, a man treats her the same way. When she treats herself like an option, he treats her like one. When she treats herself like a queen, he treats her like royalty. A woman with standards doesn't demand loyalty. She inspires it. She doesn't force commitment. She welcomes it naturally because a man knows he must step up to deserve her. Her confidence creates a blueprint for how she expects to be loved. She shows him through her life that if he chooses her, he must come correct. And you know what else? When a woman lives by standards, she doesn't fear being alone. She understands that loneliness is not the same as being unloved. She knows that choosing the wrong person just to avoid being alone is the key. Quickest way to lose yourself. She would rather stand alone than stand with someone who disrespects her. She would rather wait for the right man than settle for a man who drains her. That's why she becomes irreplaceable. Because she isn't afraid to choose herself. When a woman is not afraid to be alone, she becomes powerful. When she is powerful, she becomes rare. And when she becomes rare, she becomes unforgettable. Standards shape your identity. They shape your relationships. They shape your future. They teach people that you are not an ordinary woman. You are intentional, valuable, and worthy of real effort. And when a man encounters a woman like that, he knows instantly that she is one in a lifetime, not because she's demanding, but because she's disciplined. Not because she's perfect, but because she's principled. Not because she's hard to get, but because she's hard to replace. A woman he can replace brings peace, not chaos, confidence, not competition, purpose, not pressure. And let me tell you something, ladies. Men don't forget peace. They may be distracted by drama. They may be entertained by excitement, but they never replace the woman who brought calm to their spirit. A man can meet 100 women who look good, talk good, and play good, but the woman who brings peace to his soul, she stands out forever. Because peace is rare, peace is healing, peace is unforgettable. And when a woman carries that kind of presence, she becomes a necessity, not an option. Peace doesn't mean silence. Peace doesn't mean you never speak up. Peace doesn't mean you let him walk all over you. Peace simply means you don't turn every moment into a battlefield. You don't use your emotions to attack him. You don't punish him for mistakes he didn't make. You bring your concerns with maturity, not hostility. You communicate without tearing him down. You express yourself without trying to break him. A peaceful woman handles conflict with clarity, not confusion. She knows how to talk without shouting, how to address problems without creating new ones, how to demand respect without disrespecting him in the process. And peace doesn't come from pretending everything is perfect. Peace comes from emotional intelligence. It comes from knowing how to breathe before you react. It comes from knowing how to listen even when you disagree. It comes from knowing that you don't have to win every argument to win the relationship. A peaceful woman knows how to create an environment where a man can let his guard down. She knows how to make home feel like home, not because of the walls, but because of her presence inside those walls. She knows how to make a man feel understood in a world that constantly demands he be strong. Now let's talk about confidence. A confident woman does something to a man's spirit. She inspires him without trying. She motivates him just by being herself. She doesn't need validation every minute. She doesn't crumble because he didn't text back in 5 minutes. She doesn't fall apart because he had a long day and couldn't talk. She has a life of her own, goals of her own, dreams of her own, and a mission of her own. And when a man sees a woman who carries confidence like that, he sees a partner, not a burden. He sees someone he can build with, not someone he has to constantly reassure. He sees a woman who multiplies his energy, not one who drains it. Confidence doesn't mean she doesn't need him. It means she doesn't depend on him for her identity. She loves him, but she doesn't lose herself in him. She supports him, but she doesn't stop supporting herself. She knows her value even when he forgets. She stands tall even when life knocks her down. And listen, men admire confident women. Even the most powerful man in the room wants a woman who believes in herself. Confidence is attractive, but more importantly, confidence is stabilizing. A confident woman creates stability in a relationship because she doesn't bring insecurity to the table every day. She doesn't start unnecessary fights. She doesn't assume the worst. She communicates, she listens, she trusts, and she approaches issues with strength instead of fear. Then there's purpose. A woman with purpose shakes a man's soul. She wakes something up inside of him, not by preaching, not by pushing, not by forcing him to be something, but simply by living her life with direction. When a woman has purpose, she makes a man want to find his. When she is committed to her growth, she inspires him to grow too. A purposeful woman doesn't just love a man, she elevates him. She doesn't just support his dreams. She pushes him to pursue them. She doesn't accept excuses. She believes in solutions. She doesn't spend her life waiting for a man. She spends her life building herself so she can stand with the right man. Purposeful women are unforgettable because they bring meaning, not mess. They bring vision, not confusion. They bring clarity, not chaos. They walk with intention. They love with intention. They choose with intention. And when a man experiences a woman like that, he realizes she is not replaceable. You can replace beauty. You can replace attention. You can replace physical things, but you cannot replace purpose. You cannot replace a woman who genuinely wants the best for you, who speaks to your potential, who reminds you of your greatness, who stands with you when life hits hard, and who pushes you to be the man you were designed to be. And let's talk about pressure, because a woman he can't replace doesn't pressure a man into being something he's not. She doesn't try to control him. She doesn't try to force him to fit her expectations. She doesn't suffocate him. A woman with real power understands that a man grows best when he feels supported, not strangled. She gives him space without fear. She gives him encouragement without nagging. She gives him guidance without disrespect. She brings an energy that lifts him, not one that weighs him down. A woman who brings peace, confidence, and purpose changes a man's life. She isn't loud. She isn't chaotic. She isn't anxious. She isn't competitive. She doesn't try to outshine other women because she knows she is in a lane of her own. She doesn't try to prove her worth because she lives her worth. She doesn't try to hold on to a man by fear. She keeps him through value. She becomes irreplaceable because she offers what no one else can: a safe place, a strong presence, a clear mind, a grounded spirit. That combination is a blessing, and a blessing is never forgotten. A man may walk away from a lot of things in life, but he will never walk away easily from the woman who made him feel peace, strength, clarity, stability, and purpose. That's the woman he can't replace. The power of an irreplaceable woman is in her presence, how she carries herself, what she accepts, and what she walks away from. Presence is not about how loud you are, how dramatic you are, or how much attention you demand. Presence is the silent authority you walk with. It's the energy that enters a room before you speak. It's the way people can feel your confidence without you having to announce it. Some women think being irreplaceable comes from being perfect, being flawless, or being everything a man wants on the surface. But that's not it. What makes a woman truly unforgettable is the strength of her character, the clarity of her spirit, and the boundaries she sets with love, not anger. Presence is created through self-respect. A woman who respects herself does not need to prove anything to anyone. She does. They need to compete, compare, convince. She stands firm in who she is. She knows her worth without shouting it. She walks with a calm confidence that says, I know what I bring and I know what I won't tolerate. That kind of woman cannot be replaced because she's not common. She's not easily impressed. She's not easily shaken. She's not easily manipulated. She carries herself with dignity, and dignity is rare in a world full of noise, and presence shows in what she accepts. A woman who knows her worth doesn't accept half love, mixed signals, or inconsistent effort. She doesn't accept disrespect dressed up as jokes or neglect disguised as being busy. She recognizes when a man is given the bare minimum and she doesn't negotiate with it. She doesn't try to fix a man who isn't trying to fix himself. She doesn't wait around for someone to realize her value while they enjoy the convenience of having her around. She knows that accepting less than she deserves teaches a man he doesn't have to give more. So she holds her standards high, not because she's arrogant, but because she's aware. What a woman accepts defines her entire relationship. A woman who accepts excuses will get nothing but excuses. A woman who accepts confusion will get nothing but confusion. But a woman who accepts effort, respect, consistency, and honesty will experience a different kind of love. Because men rise to the level of the woman they want to keep, and when a woman makes it clear that she only accepts what aligns with her worth, she naturally attracts the kind of man who's willing to do the work. She becomes irreplaceable because being with her requires intention. But the most powerful part of a woman's presence is what she walks away from. A woman who knows when to walk away is a woman who will never be replaced. That's because walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's maturity, it's emotional strength. Some women stay in situations that drain them because they fear losing the man. But the truth is, you lose yourself long before you lose him. An irreplaceable woman is not afraid to say, "This is not healthy for me." She's not afraid to choose peace over chaos. She's not afraid to choose herself when love stops choosing her. A woman like that doesn't cry over someone who repeatedly shows they don't care. She doesn't beg for someone to understand her value. She doesn't chase after someone who keeps running. She walks away with her head held high because she knows her worth is not up for debate. And when she walks away, she does it with grace, not revenge, not hate, not bitterness, just clarity. A man may not understand it in the moment, but he will remember the woman who walked away without losing her character. That memory stays with him because you can't replace a woman who chooses herself. And it's not just relationships, it's her whole life. A woman with an unforgettable presence walks away from drama, from negative environments, from friendships that no longer support her, from habits that don't grow her. She walks away from anything that dims her light. This self-respect shapes her into a woman who glows differently. People feel that glow. Men feel it. The right man cherishes it. The wrong man fears it, but nobody forgets it. Presence is not something you buy. It's something you cultivate. It's in the way she speaks, firm but gentle. It's in the way she forgives without losing her boundaries. It's in the way she stands up for herself without tearing others down. It's in the way she loves with depth but never desperation. It's in the way she gives with intention, not emptiness. It's in the way she holds herself together even when life tests her. A woman who has mastered her presence has mastered her life. And a woman like that becomes irreplaceable because she brings something most people don't bring anymore: emotional maturity. She knows how to control her reactions. She knows how to choose her battles. She knows how to communicate without attacking. She knows when to speak up and when to let silence do the work. She knows who she is, what she wants, and what she stands for. She doesn't move with fear. She moves with purpose. She doesn't settle. She aligns. She doesn't force. She flows. And that is not something a man finds twice. A woman's presence determines the quality of her connections. The woman who knows her power doesn't force love. She attracts it naturally. She doesn't ask for loyalty. She commands it through her energy. She doesn't demand respect. She inspires it by the way she lives. A woman like this is the kind of woman who changes a man's entire understanding of what love feels like. She becomes a reference point in his mind. She becomes the standard he measures every experience against. She becomes the woman he compares every other woman to. And no matter how far he goes or how many people he meets, he will remember the woman whose presence brought peace, strength, clarity, and purpose into his life. That is what makes a woman irreplaceable. Not perfection, not pressure. Presence, the way she carries herself, the standards she keeps, the boundaries she honors, the energy she brings, and the things she refuses to tolerate. A man can find many women, but he will never replace the one who knew her worth so deeply that her presence became unforgettable.